status of the eliminated Parish property.
Morning. I wanted to give you a status report on what we consider one of the big successes in the DOE demonstration program, and that is the Parish Post-Combustion Cleanup and Sequestration project. The government's focus has three prongs. One, we're doing obviously the technology development using our R&D lab and a lot of research that's being done. It's pretty much been consistent for as long as I've been there in 32 years. But we also do demonstrations, everything from small pilots to full-scale demonstrations, and the Parish project, the Petra Nova project is one of those. And also, more recently, within the last 15 years, we've been working directly with other departments within the Department of Energy, mainly the loan guarantee program, but also the IRS Treasury group on the financial incentives for tax credits, 48A, 48B. As you can see, we've been working on these problems, or this issue and these programs, since the early 80s. I don't go quite that far back. But you can see we had the Clean Coal Program, Power Initiative, Clean Coal Power Again, and integrated carbon capture programs that we've been pretty much consistent over the last period of time to bring the R&D technologies to the commercial marketplace. Way back when, the drivers were the Clean Air Act that the government that was put into place, and subsequently the R&D to support those, to help facilitate the implementation has been around. And hopefully with the new regulations that are coming out, we expect a similar type of arrangement that the government will increase our ability to facilitate and help technologies get into the market. These are our 6 major demos. There are a few missing, and there'll be a quiz afterwards to guess which ones are missing. Summit is active. We have, as you can see, 3 in Texas and Louisiana area. Summit, and notably, pretty much everything on there is EOR based, except for the Archer Dam in Finland, which is sailing reservoir. The one I'm obviously speaking with is regarding the Petra Nova project. Just showing you where they're at. The Petra Nova project is one of the projects. It's located in Thompson. It's 240 megawatts. Notably, it's putting its plans are to put 1.4 million tons of CO2 as EOR for the West Ranch Oilfield. You can see our share is 167 million. We're a small player with $1 billion projects. Typically, in the past we've been up to 50% cost share, but quite often we get in situations where 167 is sufficient. Again, to get a sense of where we're coming from, this was a CCPI round 3. And one of the reasons why it's 167 million is that originally it started at a much smaller scale, 60 megawatts, and grew to 240. It's 240, it looks like a little bit, but at 60 megawatts, it was a significant cost share. As I mentioned, the focus of the CO2 and makes it very commercially viable is to put it in the EOR fields, particularly existing EOR fields. This particular field had not been doing CO2 injection other than water wash cycles, WAG cycles, but this is a little different. You can see the, this is probably not a good slide to do that, but let's give you a sense of the timeline. Notably, first item, I want to draw your attention to this inconsistent. We go all the way back into 2010. Award to 167 million to a 60 megawatt project at the time. They start their front-end engineering, pretty much quickly find out that 60 megawatts worth of CO2 will not charge the reservoir fast enough. You will get your return on the investment where it starts actually producing well, moves out about 5 or 10 years, and by obviously quadrupling the amount of CO2 you're putting in, you get a quick charge on the reservoir. That turned out as one of the things that doing the feed upfront work starts doing. The other note I want to bring up is that if you look, we don't finish our final environmental impact statement until 2013. I don't want to say that when you get DOE money, you have to do NEPA. That's true. But typically, NEPA doesn't take 3 years to do. It's usually in the 18 to 20, 2 years would be our general target. And one of the reasons it was changed, or it took 3 years, is in part to change the design. And give you warning that the involvement is that you have good news. Good news is you figured out that 240 is the appropriate amount. Bad news is quite often that doesn't quite fully restart, but it generally restarts a lot of your NEPA activities, and you may need to do additional public scopings and things like that, modeling for a different size project. So, good news, bad news. What's notable is that they did issue a limited notice to proceed in March of 2014. They closed essentially in the July timeframe of 2014, and they're fully into fabrication, construction on site, and everything like that. So it's for us, it's a big success story. Some of the players you can see, spend a little bit of time. This Petra Nova, our contract, or our cooperative agreement, is with Petra Nova, the middle box here, Petra Nova Parish Holdings Limited, which is a 50% ownership of RD&D, which is Japanese involvement. Out of that, they own the cogen unit, which is they had, in order to not disturb the existing power plant, coal-fired power plant, meaning they needed additional steam, they needed additional power to drive the compressors and the capture system, that they essentially put a small cogen unit in. They ended up owning that unit. They own the CO2 capture bar, and they're splitting the ownership of the Texas Coastal with Hillport, which is the Oilfield. And out of that, you can see that joint group of Texas Coastal Ventures and Pipeline and West Ranch. The bottom is kind of a little small, but you can see that the equity positions are NRG and JX, basically putting in $300 million. Project financing put the other 250, and DOE grants at 167. Likewise, you can see the site itself takes up the bulk of the money, 637, with essentially the Oilfield and pipeline capital is $300 million, and the other O&M, G&A, and fees take up the rest of it. This slide, I have a better solution, better slide describing the process, and we have Mitsubishi folks here, but I don't think it's the side of the shop. What's notable here is that this is a successful process that's been developed by Mitsubishi. It's been evaluated. You can see the 5 levels of the 5 projects, that all the way from 2 tons per day, all the way to 25. And the only thing I can say is the bottom one, 25 megawatts, 500 tons per day plant Barry, which started in June of 2011. That was key. We do a lot of demonstrations, and we always struggle with technology risk associated with a new activity. And the bankers and financial in the project financing deployment, we're running into more and more, and honestly, we're getting more knowledgeable than DOE is with regard to what is financial risk and how the financials evaluate technology risk. Now, as a technologist, of course, it'll work. But as most of you know, it's site. Everything is location and the specifics of it. So the idea that this project probably goes forward because of the 25 megawatt small scale demonstration of the plant Barry. Keep in mind, it's a 10 to 1 scale up to go from 25 to 250 or 240 at the Petra Nova site, but that is sufficient. And we think that the particularly international bankers in Japan did many tours out to the plant Barry site to make sure that this thing is, that you've got the on-ground experience working and getting these things done. And hopefully DOE's plans are to follow that model and continue doing small-scale demos with the potential of going to large scale, recognizing that 100 to 1 scale up of technology is just not going to fly. Or if it will fly, you're going to, you better have deep pockets and you better have a high risk premium or something along that line. I'm not the technologist of it, but I do know that this is coming off of a unscrubbed PRB coal-fired unit. Obviously, they're cooling it down and trimming, running it through an absorber system, a catalyst absorber system, and a regenerator, and subsequently compressing on-site and into the pipeline. These are the examples of NHI's commercial CO2 production facilities, pretty much all around the world. This is the plant barrier site. Most visited site I've seen related to this project. It's only 100 by 300 foot, but it's been operating very successfully. I've been out there myself. It's extremely clean, quiet, and effective. Essentially all the CO2 goes off-site, and the CO2 pipelines are all underground, so it's a very clean, tranquil site that I think is a very good selling point. This is Petra Nova site. You can see where they put the carbon capture facility. To some extent, it's shoehorned in, but not that badly. There was an open area that they're being able to put the carbon capture facility right in the middle, cooling towers. And there's the cogen plant over on the far left, providing that additional steam and electricity for the units that are coming in. Okay, CO2 essentially put on the ground. Right-of-ways have all been prepared. That's an exciting proposition, but this is most of the, I'd say 90% of the path of the pipeline to the West Ranch oil field was in established right-of-ways, which is very nice. There's a lot of pipeline, a lot of gas lines already going in the area, so adding another line pretty much, this is probably pretty quick. As a side note, I was the project manager on the Future Gen project, and this was a total nightmare trying to run the pipelines through farm fields that the owners had never done right-of-way. So the advantage of having an area where you're doing pipeline routing and area where people already have right-of-ways, that's critical. That absolutely made the process go so much quicker. Because we're starting to lay pipe, but it is not, pipeline laying is not on the critical path. You see these. Essentially, we separated at the oil field. And this, again, I mentioned this oil field had not done CO2 injection and done others, so they have a lot of facilities. But it turns out that you have to do thousands of wells that you have already set in place to do certain things with water and things like that. And when you're injecting CO2, you have to repurpose a lot of these wells and do a lot of analysis of wells, open and close them. And so there is I think from our earlier slide, like $300 million for the pipeline and the field work. But this is where the money is made, and these are critical on how you're going to get the CO2 down. Notable here is, and it's always debatable, is that 1 ton of CO2 can produce up to 4 barrels of oil. That's always a good point of discussion. Some of the best kept secrets I've ever seen. Everybody I've talked to who's doing CO2 EOR injection tells me it is site specific on how responsive the oil field is. But in this situation, that's probably appropriate. So you can imagine, even at low prices, getting 4 barrels out of a ton of CO2 pretty quickly pays for itself. And you can see at the bottom, out of this one field, one segment of this one field, acknowledging there are different segments of this field, they expect 60 million barrels of oil out of this field. One of the things that, as I mentioned, you get NEPA when you get the OE money. You also get a monitoring plan. One of the things we've pretty much put into all of our cooperative agreements for major demonstrations is the a requirement to monitor where the CO2 and calibrate, and essentially getting a reservoir of information. My coworker John Tinsky will talk more about reservoirs tomorrow. But our point is, we've been charged to develop these environmental monitoring plans, which are something new to the obviously the oil field, who quite honestly want to protect their resources. Really do not want a lot of information released regarding how productive the oil field is. Even that capacity number of 60 million, that's just what they told us. We don't have any technical data to verify that they can get 60 million barrels of oil out of it. That's just a number that they gave us in order to show us that the financials work and the rate of return is reasonable for everybody who's playing the game. Do not know that. But what we're doing is primarily trying to, obviously, we want to characterize the field, essentially establish what it is, be able to monitor during the operation and post-operation. We are on hook to do the monitoring for 3 years, which is probably not sufficient for how long they're going to be CO2 injection. That's how long our cooperative agreement goes. We'd obviously love to maintain and continue this monitoring activity. But essentially, we want to verify the plume, where it's going, and its guarantee of CO2 capture. That CO2 that's obviously you put it down, it comes back up, you need to recycle it, so the leakage is reduced, essentially eliminated, and then you're not contaminating various strata above where you inject it. As I mentioned, here's some of the key elements of it. Obviously, we're going to try to do a mass CO2 mass counting, taking measurements, certainly recording what's going in, what's being recycled. We're obviously also going to be doing some pressure monitoring concerning about the injection zones above the injection area to make sure that we're not over-pressurizing the strata. Physical, we're doing geophysical monitoring. We run 4 wells during the CO2 injection. Shallow water, I want to verify that nothing's percolating, crackling out through and contaminating the water tables. Fluid modeling, we're going to take all this data, put it together, and be able to predict where it's going to go and how it's going to be in the long term. And there will be some chemical baselining in order to identify, essentially characterize the strata that's being injected into. So, pretty pictures, groundbreaking last September. No, probably earlier than that. And some of the foundations that are being put in, excavation, pilings. It's kind of cool. They have set up a couple of fixed position cameras, and there's time-lapse photography that's going to be done on this, which kind of makes it exciting. And that the DOE people don't have to go out to the site and go actually get access to the cameras and spot, oh, that's going in. Physically watch a structure being built over, 12 hours time period. Kind of a nice idea. Certainly keeps us out of the field more than we'd like. And some heat exchanger and things like that. Major equipment is being fabricated, the regenerator, and the absorber vessels. Plus, Mitsubishi is working hard and doing some final proof testing of their large CO2 compressor. And I think everything gets shipped out essentially within the next 6 months. And the target is that these vessels are the critical path, the compressor and the absorber vessels, which are some of the largest ones that are being made. And hopefully the target is for the end of 2016, maybe early 17, to be putting the first CO2 in the ground. So, just get a sense of the whole region that we're talking about, the Houston, Louisiana area. We estimate the 17 billion barrels are economically recoverable through using this type of EOR injection, which is really good. And that's who we are. That's who I am. Ted McMahon is the project manager. If you have deep questions, or think I've lied to you, call Ted. With that, let me know.
You take a few questions.
Sure.
Southern companies can't have lots of
Yep.
not foresee these delays here, or you think we learned enough and didn't understand what our
Okay. I will tell you that the Kemper project, honestly, in retrospect, did too many technologies. That was a 200 to 1, at least 100 to 200 to 1 scale up of the KBR technology. KBR folks here, shoot me later, but I think it was a big technology risk. I was project manager when I watched it change over. That's one issue. Plus, they were trying to do the KBR, plus open up a greenfield late night mine in the area, and really had not developed enough data and information on all of these systems that they were they had not integrated those things. And so I think technology would work, but the integration of them is quite often where you flounder. And every sports probably the same type of situation. Maybe not that big a stretch, but the integration of going 4 times units of what you made is one thing, but 4 times scale is a real critical. That's what I think. So Kemper is moving along. We believe it's going to be running by the end of the year. And it is getting closer.
Edwards Ports, where is it now?
Other running. My point is Edwards Port, I refer to that to CIGCC and the new folks. Yes. It was a little expensive, and we've been tracking at least a little bit through the public, announcements of what it is, but it's expensive. And my point there, just from a novice, and I honestly have not been there other than just noticing that integration is complete. And you had some geological stuff that nobody knew about. That you had some subsurface stuff that you end up having to reinforce stuff that, Murphy gotcha.
Other questions?
John Lurker with Petra. I know with a lot of the EOR projects.
Further away. You're going.
Okay, sorry. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. With a lot of the EOR projects before, there was a lot of the back and forth between the plants producing the CO2 and the oil field using it.
Yes.
And that was even around $80, $100 a barrel. Now we're at 50, 60. Is that, I guess my first part of my question is that still a contentious issue? You're saying the total economics still work. Have they sorted out that who shares what kind of thing? And then the second piece of that is when you put up that 17 billion barrels of recoverable, was the economics and what the cost would be for the CO2 put to all of that, or is that just a high level estimate?
No, okay, let me go back to some questions. 17 billion is just, it's a government number that says if you have CO2, you can recover it. It has nothing to do with price on it. Okay. I can't honestly tell you with the price of, Petra was set at an $80, $90 barrel. The price point was at 70, 89. It's called $80 a barrel. Didn't mean they lose money, they just didn't like the IRR as much. And even if it went down to 50, I believe they're still making money. But the break point and the decision point on everybody's happy with the IRR was around the $80 value, not the 120. And so, to that extent, and not only that, but once you start charging, you can't stop it. And you've already invested the capital to it. If you take the capital out completely, and obviously you have it established, then it's all gravy. Because the best number, even at $50 a ton of CO2, you're still getting $200 worth of oil if it's 4 to 1. So, and when you own the system in between when you're producing the CO2, it's a lot cheaper. I don't know what Denbury and the systems that are there they're charging, but unless you have a natural reservoir of CO2, the truth is getting CO2 from coal-fired power plants is the cheapest next to naturally occurring domes like Jackson Dome. Does that answer your question, Ron?
Yeah, I guess my question still is, who pays the $50 for the CO2? Is it the power plant or the oil bank? Because, I think in the past when I've heard those discussions around the EOR, the issue was who gets paid, whether or not the $50 balances out, who gets the benefit of the CO2.
Right. No, this project doesn't go forward unless you have a partnership with the Oilfield. In fact, Summit is pursuing that exact point to get into an arrangement with an Oilfield such that the problem with the Oilfield is they need a long-term, they need a 20-year supply of CO2. In order, because once you start charging the field, you're not going to stop. And so the balance, the idea of a combination of a power plant that wants to run for that period of time, married up with an oil field who wants to see CO2 that consistent. I don't want to say it's a tail wagging the dog, but the oil field sets everything. So getting that relationship and that agreement is really key because that's where all the revenues are going to come. If you just try to make CO2 put in saline reservoir, you're going to run into future gen type stuff. You know, where who's going to pay for the CO2 that would go into the ground? And obviously I am in Chicago, and you were going to pay, you know, on a premium on your rates. So, thank you.
Other questions?